Nice to see everybody. We'll give it a second here there we go. Sometimes there's a little delay with the official live versus when I start to stream. I think I've mentioned this before. But either way, it doesn't happen all the time. It's just you can tell when it's taking longer for the live stream button to show up on YouTube versus the time when I start. There's also, if you don't do videos, you probably don't know that at least with live streaming, at the end too, you kind of have to do a delay because when I end the stream, it doesn't automatically end the feed. It's again, there's sort of a delay. So I have to wait and watch like the last few seconds of what I just said. And then I have to end it on the YouTube side. So Tarantula Clan, hey, thank you very much. Good to see you. I appreciate the super chat. And of course, just being here, all of you. This is Christian Witnesses of Jah discussion. It's a time where I try to make myself available for anyone who wants to come together, as we're told we should do as often as possible. There's no set time, right? I mean, we try to do it once a week, but it's not like you have to always be here or that I have to only do it once a week, right? There's no rules, there's no requirements other than we should try to get together as often as we can. That's reasonable, right? Isn't that basically what we believe should happen? So it's just not always easy for everybody when we're not close together in terms of where we live, where we work. But with today's technology, we can come together across the world in similar ways. And then from there, build up our local area as much as possible, right? We know all we're required to do, like if you look at Jesus' illustration of the talents, right? As long as we produce something and we don't let our talent go to waste, then that's it. Then we did the will of the master, right? That's what we're here to do. Christian Witnesses of Jah. We believe in three things that are requirements, basically. There are three main doctrines that identify us as who we are, apart from other groups who don't promote those three specific things above everything else and then allow for others to choose what they're going to do when it comes to things like days, festivals, moons. We're explicitly told in the Bible we're not to judge people over those things, that we are not appointed as judges over people so that we can tell them what to eat and what to celebrate. Yeah, of course, if there's something they're doing that's so manifestly contradictory to what we can show as true, sometimes even that can be an interpretation, right? Maybe we think a certain celebration is just pagan. Well, then the right thing would be to go to the person and say, hey, why are you celebrating that day? I know you can celebrate what you want, but I just want to make sure that. Now, see, even as I ask the question, right, if I'm talking about a Christian, like someone who's promoting the God Jah, the God of the Bible, the one God, the Father, and they're promoting the Messiah, they're following the teachings of the Messiah, they're confessing their sins when they need to, they're helping other people, and in doing so that they're fulfilling the golden rule, treating them the way they want to be treated or love others the way you want to be loved. It's kind of hard for me to imagine, as I was going through that scenario, going to a Christian and asking seriously, are you celebrating a paganism? Right? Even if I think the holiday, for example, say Christmas, is surrounded by pagan associations, right? Well, if a Christian who promotes the God Jah and the Messiah of the Bible, Jesus, and the Golden Rule says, no, I am not celebrating paganism. I'm a Christian, you know. You know me, right? If you do. If you don't, then it's a little different. But still, we don't want to just go up to people that we're pretty sure are doing what they're supposed to do and question every little thing they do. Maybe we do want to kind of know. Maybe we just want to be sure that, okay, yeah, I figured you celebrate Christmas and I don't. I just don't feel like it because I'm not comfortable with the associations. But I think I know that you are, and so how do you? I'm just curious how you understand the different pagan associations with December 25th. And if the Christian who promotes Jah, the one God of the Bible, the Father, the Messiah of the Bible, Jesus, and the Golden Rule says to you, well, I don't even think of those pagan things. I just know that that day is the day that everybody is thinking about the birth of Jesus, whether in a good or bad way. So I I don't necessarily believe he was born on that day, but it's not promoting a lie because most people don't believe he was born on that day. Everybody knows it was chosen as the day to represent his birth and to replace the day of certain festivals of the birth of the sun god. But that's to replace it, right? If I'm the Christian who's telling you why I do it, it's not because we're continuing the worship of the sun, S-U-N, God. It's because now it's something different. It's something honoring Jesus, so it gets rid of what the pagans who were celebrating paganism are used to with something now that's not pagan. And so we're just using that day because none of us know the day. So where's the paganism? We're replacing the paganism as I see it. If I'm the person who's telling you that I celebrate for these reasons because you asked me, right? So, you need to look at that in the most favorable light. Why would the Christian who's promoting Jah, the God of the Bible, the Father, the Messiah, Golden Rule, promote paganism, right? Especially if they're openly telling you, hey, no, that's not what I'm doing. I just use it because we don't know the day of Jesus' birth. The Bible does present angels and the Magi coming and honoring Jesus and not dishonoring him with their pagan magic or anything. It presents them as coming to honor the Messiah with gifts and the angels announcing his birth. So it's hard for me to believe that the Bible presents every birth in a bad light. It does not. And so if a person wants to honor the Messiah on a day that everybody else is thinking of him in a way that will not only allow them to participate the way they believe is correct, but also to take advantage of the fact that other people are thinking of Jesus more often than they usually would, right? With Christmas being around, something you can use or you can at least try to benefit from in a way that where people's hopefully their guard is a little bit lower, and because they know it's just that time to celebrate things like that, some more or less maybe, right? And so in our association as Christian Witnesses of Jah, these are some of the things, right? We know 1, 2, and 3. Jah, the Father, one God, Jesus, you and me, Golden Rule. But then now we also need to, as we've talked about before, and as we know just as people who live in this world, without forcing everybody to think the same, we need to allow people to be who they are in ways that are understandable, if not always acceptable because of who we are, sinful people, but we should be demonstrating our desire not to promote our sin, right? Not to practice our sin. We may sin. We definitely will sin. But that doesn't mean we have to keep sinning, right? So we make a big mistake. So get up, stop making that mistake, and minimize the damage, right? Your decision to think negatively of the mistake and then to try to fix it shows you were weak. You're a sinful person. You have generations of desire that have, along with the image qualities of God, been passed on to you, and you are going to have moments of strength and moments of weakness, more or less, depending on your makeup, your genetic profile, your spirit. And so we're going to have variances with each other in ways where we'll have to be accommodating to the extent we can, right? We can't expect others to accommodate us forever, right? If we just can't, at some point, we should also be sensitive to other people's acceptance of our choices, right? In this case, say someone celebrates Christmas. Okay, well, then if that's what you do, and you know the person who's asking you whether making sure you don't include paganism, you know they don't do it, they just choose not to because they're too concerned about those elements, but they're good enough to just know that you're not doing that, and you're only doing it in a wholesome biblical way as you understand it. Then that should be how it ends, right? That you shouldn't burden the other person because they choose not to do it, right? You shouldn't go to them and say, hey, you should be honoring Jesus like the Bible said. It doesn't say we have to do that. It doesn't say we have to celebrate his birth, does it? No. But it doesn't indicate in any way we shouldn't. So we should allow for each one. There's nothing wrong with it as long as there is not a manifest or obvious intent that we would then want to verify, right? Because we can't read minds. We can read people in many ways, but we can't fully discern the heart. They can tell us though, right? If they just say, hey, this is or isn't what I mean or what I do, well, then we don't have to read their heart. They're telling us. The mouth speaks what's in the heart. So we can test it and make sure. But, we want to make sure that we're giving enough to allow people to feel comfortable doing what they choose to do. They're not accountable to us, accountable to the master, right? So we focus on the three things that bind us, and anything else, we focus on that, and we just, okay, you do that, you do that, but we're going to do this together, right? You may celebrate Christmas apart from me, and I may choose to do things or eat things that you wouldn't eat. But when it comes to promoting the God of the Bible, right? When it comes to taking a stand for the truth about the God of the Bible, Jah, the one God, the Father, and promoting the truth about his Son, the pre-Christian and post-Christian evidence we have that he is the one sent forth to save mankind, at least the best we have, right? We can't convince every mind, nor do we have to. All we should be able to do is present what we know is true and allow people to choose for themselves what they want to do. And as long as we come together to do that, promote the God of the Bible, promote the Messiah of the Bible, promote living the way that is best, without hypocrisy. I'm going to treat you the way I would want to be treated. So I'm probably not going to do something bad to you because that's not what I would want done to me. This is simple stuff. Simple stuff that we often forget because we get caught up and life is complicated. But we simplify here to those three things, right? We've even made it so that with the divine name, for example, you don't have to just say it one way. And if we're going to keep things simple, right? Nobody disputes Jah or Yah. And we don't speak Hebrew or Greek unless we're talking about it, right? And we might, but we're not conversing in those languages. So we speak anglicized terms. We shouldn't be making it hard on people and say, well, it's really Yahovah or Yahweh or what. Look, let's just stay with. If it gets to that, if it starts becoming a problem with any of you with the divine name in the full form, 3-letter, 4-letter, and one's like Yah-oh, the other one's like Yahweh, the other one's like no Jehovah. Why don't you guys just say, okay, we'll all pronounce the fuller forms of the name the way we think is best, and we'll just go with Jah, okay? And you Yah person, you Hebrew person who wants to try to just say Hebrew names in a Hebrew way, but otherwise you don't really speak Hebrew in that way, or even say all the names in the Bible according to a Hebrew pronunciation. Either way, at some point we got to put that aside, right? We got to put that aside and say, okay, let's just go with Jah. We speak English here. Or maybe you speak some other language. Maybe it is Yah. in another language, but you're all going to say it this together. See, we have to be able to, as a group, as devoted believers, as the body, part of the body. And by the way, if you came prepared tonight to partake of the blood and the body, I'm ready for you. This is another advantage of what we do, right? So I wanted to make those points. I wanted to just kind of introduce this discussion with those ideas and thoughts so that going into this holiday season and as you guys come closer together and maybe add people, when these things come up, you kind of see, hopefully, a productive and constructive way to move forward with these issues without getting caught up, right? You can always get caught up in a discussion of some differences of opinion and things. But you'll do a lot more better work if you save that for later. And when you're together, you focus on what you agree on and you come to an agreement on, okay, we'll just say this together. This is the least disputed form. Let's do that. And now you're back focused on the things that matter, right? Building each other up, making sure each other is spiritually strong enough to sustain themselves as things sometimes get tough. Or looking out for the poor and the lowly among us, right? We can't do that if we're arguing over these little things. And fortunately, I don't think we really do that a lot. But as people come in, right? As more people become close to you and want to do more with you, and then you have like 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20 more. At some point, some of these things will come up. And so this way you kind of see, okay, let's just get right to it, right? People can believe what they want. But we here agree on the simplest way to move forward with these issues, indisputable facts and presentation identities, and even on the Holy Spirit, right? It's like, look, we allow for a couple of different views. No Trinity here. That metaphysic is not in the Bible. But if you want to believe the Trinity and you're not going to get in our way or promote the Trinity, okay, that's fine, right? You're just going to have to hold it in. But why would you want to do that, right? So either way, we don't believe that. So why would we want you promoting the Trinity here? But we do allow for different views on the Holy Spirit because it's mostly metaphysic and it's presented in a way that the Father and the Son are not. It's less defined in a personal way like individuals as they are. And even if it is, we then have some question of just how that works with the seven spirits. But either way, it's the Holy Spirit. The Spirit of God personalized, or Spirit that is known as the Holy Spirit and functions the way the Father and the Son want, because they both send the Holy Spirit. Now, let me go through the text here and welcome everybody. And also, I think Miroslav, I think you wanted to talk about something. Maybe you have been and I missed it. I apologize if that's the case, but I thought maybe you'd kind of wait and we'd bring it up. So let's just see what happened here while I was talking about a few things. So good to see you, Miroslav. Everett, always good to see you. And Tarantula Clan, good to see you. And thank you again. Jason, TKS, Betsy. Yes, praise job, Betsy. Good evening and morning. All right, it covers them both. That's good. I guess it could be afternoon, but either way. John Alife. John Alife. I wonder, is that your real last name, John? If so, that's really cool. If not, it's still cool. Jason. Okay, I think I saw Jason already. And, all right, if I missed anybody, I apologize. But let's see. Did Miroslav bring anything up? A color beard. No, I don't color it. I don't. I thought about, I just, I don't really have a lot of really much gray hair because I try to eat well and take care of it, use good products and stuff. But I do have a little gray right here, huh? But I don't color it. No color, wife of Miroslav. If that's what you meant. So let's see here. This is really just our show where we can talk, relax. There's always some stuff we can talk about. By the way, part 24 of the Bible and the Trinity in Conflict tomorrow. I'm not sure what time I'm going to do that. I might, I've done the last several live streams in the evening because it kind of works out okay around this time. I think might be best. because 8 o'clock, the time right now out here, is still early enough for pretty much everyone in the west coast of the United States. Now, people on the East Coast, it's getting a little late for them, but they're kind of used to it. Right? It's like 11:30 over there. Like in New York, it's 3 hours later. But where Betsy and Miroslav are, right, and other people, it's kind of early. It's early, but it's early enough to where you can make it. So maybe this 8 to 9 p.m. is just the best time, huh? Because if I do it too early in the morning, then, not everyone out here, you guys, it might be evening for you, but out here, people sometimes either aren't up early or they got things to do. Whereas in the evening, it's a little easier. This 8 to 9, it can be a little tricky with dinner and stuff sometimes. Again, California stuff. But it's also a little late enough. 8 to 9 is a little bit later than normal dinner starts. So I guess that probably is best. That works for me. This slot right here, 8 to 9, maybe even 8:30. Because I'm trying to be accommodating, but at the same time, we're limited, right? We got the time zones as they are. Oh, was that it, Miroslav, about the beard? Miroslav told me earlier, he was saying something about on another video that he had something to say. Has 3-color beard. Well, so it's, I guess, gray. I guess sometimes my hair's like darker brown, but it can get lighter. Like if I'm in the sun, a lot or at the beach, then it'll get a little lighter, even blonde. I don't go to the beach that much anymore. I mean, it's like not that far where I am, but it's just time wise, and I'm just, we got stuff. So a 3-color beer. I wonder if that's what she meant: light brown, dark brown, and gray. Maybe. Either way, I don't color it though. But I don't. I guess now I see that I don't think that's what she meant. Everett's a barber, so I mean, and I have a place here that does okay. But anytime, if I find you, Everett, I will. Well, I don't want to take advantage, but I'm always looking for to look nice and clean. So we'll see what you do there. What do we got here? Let me just take a look at some of your comments because I want to include you guys and just chat, right? This is just a free session, basically, right? Whereas we have open session, but that's more like that can blend over into CW Jah stuff. But this is like specific, 100%. Sometimes we'll be, talk about other stuff, but it's all basically going to come back to us. And if it's just us sitting here chatting for a few and talking about life and stuff, well, that's good. That's what we're supposed to do, right? We're supposed to come together and make sure that people are doing okay and that they're learning, that we're all progressing, and that we're becoming better people, right? I mean, that's the goal is to live as long as we can and to become as good of a person as we can. To try to minimize our mistakes, right? When we make them, deal with them, right? Don't compound them. Don't get down on yourself. Just deal with it and move on. We're all dealing with stuff. We all have things that are problems for us. And we should be trying to help each other get through life, right? Everett, I appreciate it. Thank you for the super chat. Let's see what he's got. He's got a comment with it. He says, "Hey, Greg, would you be interested in doing a discussion with the divine name about the divine name if it's in a respectful setting? If I can set it up with Vocab Malone, I sent him a copy of your JWD3. Well, I'm always interested in a discussion that would be positive and productive. Now, that's not always possible. And for people like you and me, we have to always be aware We know the apologetic nuts. I don't think this person you're talking about is necessarily in that category. But outside of that, right? Right, like when I debated Maury, for example. We were supposed to debate the Trinity. And then right as the debate started, like literally when we got on the air on the radio, he said, "Well, Greg, this is an interesting. Let's go here." Next thing you know, we're talking about the foreknowledge of God and the Watchtower's view of the knowledge of God. That was not the planned discussion. Maury's these guys are nuts, right? I mean, when you're dealing with some of these people, some of the apologetic nuts, we know this to be true, everybody, right? Some of us do. They're not what's the word here? They don't play fair. They're not looking for some of them I think are probably fair-minded, but I'm talking about the nuts, right? I'm not talking about like just your average everyday Trinitarian or even Trinitarian apologist, someone who believes in it strongly. I'm talking about, again, Maury, Sam, right? Sam is pretty much off the deep end right now, though, and Sam and Maury are close, but Maury had some professionalism to him, right? Maury was definitely a loose cannon and kind of nuts, and he could say things that were definitely over the top, right? But Maury was also at least capable of having a discussion. Now, he insulted me, I think, after I left the Gene Cook show. Yeah, I have the recording. He insulted me after I left, and then in subsequent emails. But during the show, I actually thought it went much better than I thought he would treat me. I thought Maury was kind of a rude guy. And I was prepared for it, right? You know I don't take it, but I don't like it. I'm not looking to argue to be mean to people, but I know who I'm dealing with, or sometimes I think I do. Sometimes it's hard to tell. People aren't clear, at least in the comments. But when I was with Maury, it was like the second the show started, I'm like, this guy. Now, of course, I'm prepared, but Maury thought he was going to stealth attack me on a right. He thought, okay, I've already debated Bowman, I've already debated White on this Trinity. He knew I knew the Trinity. I'm sure he read my second edition, right? I wrote about him in my second edition and third. I think in the first a little. Either way, he knew what I was prepared to say. And he just bolted, right? He just bolted right off. A lot of people don't know that, or at least don't think about that, and that's okay, right? We're supposed to be prepared. But it was definitely not a legitimate move, huh? If I would have done that, we're here to talk about the Trinity. Hey, Maury, let's talk about bodily resurrection. Well, maybe he would have done it because he's a little nuts, but that wouldn't have looked good. I would have just switched topics, right? It's kind of a sign of weakness, actually. Otherwise, why switch topics, right? Either way, what do we got here? So Everett, yeah. He kind of. Oh, I see. The James White. James White, James White's kind of, he's a little. He's fine. I don't have a problem with Dr. White. I mean, I think he's a little aggressive. He can be, but that's his style. Sometimes I can be, but we can't expect everybody to be exactly the way we want them all the time. That's not fair. I got through all those debates just fine, and they were, for the most part, fine. So it's hard for me to be negative about any of them, Bowman, Maury, or White. But you still have to watch them, right? They still have tactics, right? They definitely do, as we just discussed with Maury and White too, right? White had Sam there at our debate. I don't think that was an accident. Sam was there asking a stupid question from a source he couldn't even cite, right? But either way, that didn't go over very well because again, they don't understand. Sam's so dumb. He thinks that I think Jesus is the actual. That's why they say that. Oh, you think there was a time when God was without wisdom? No, I don't think he's God's wisdom. I'm talking about wisdom personified as an individual being, as an actual being manifesting and embodying the qualities of wisdom. And so Sam gets up and asks me a stupid question about God's power, as if because I think Jesus is God's wisdom, that I would also have to say he's God's power, when I don't believe he's God's wisdom. So why would I think he's God's attribute of power? He still doesn't understand this. Again, there are things that people can bring up and they're to me they're stupid, right? There's nothing else I can really say about them, right? Some of the things they say and comments they make and the arguments, right? I'm looking at them, I'm thinking, why? I know what they're saying, but they don't understand what I'm saying, or they're deliberately distorting it because there's no other way they can deal with it, right? If I don't believe Jesus is God's attribute of wisdom, well, now they have to deal with him being an individual being who is the embodiment of wisdom. That's a lot more difficult for them. So they don't even try. How are they going to do that? They don't even believe he's an individual being. They believe he's a person of God, shares in the nature of God. So how could he be wisdom in any way representative of, for example, personification in terms of the individuation of wisdom in Proverbs 8, right? As an actual individual being, separate from God, not God's attribute, you see? But it's one thing after another with them. Failure to understand personification, failure to understand generation, firstborn, son, right? Temporal terms. And they just create this category where they mean the exact opposite. Instead of mean the beginning of temporality, they mean eternal. It's an eternal whatever, right? It's an eternal what? Generation, proceeding like light. Yeah, but that's not how light works. Light's a particle that's emitted. It's actually separate from the source. And everything, if you want to say, well, it comes out of the source, so it has to be eternal. No, everything's out of the Father. You Trinitarians just don't understand or read or accept the Bible. It'd be great if you did, right? If you guys would just read the Bible and accept it, stop taking out the divine name, stop misusing the word God, stop changing temporal terms to mean eternal. That would be great. That would go a long way to solving some of the division among Christians. But we're not the ones who are married to Constantine's metaphysic. We're not the ones who are dissatisfied with characterites hypostaseos, right? That's another one, right? A term that always means a temporal distinction between that which imprints and that which is imprinted upon. There's never a case where there isn't a temporal distinction between those two. But all of a sudden, right, when we get to the Trinity, well, age is copied onto something. So now a copy isn't a copy. They're both the same age. So what do you mean copy? Oh, they look the same? They're identical in every way? Yeah. Oh, okay. No, that's not what that term means. That's not what it means at all. Character never means that. It means an imprint of something into something else that looks like and is temporally distinct from the original. That's what it always means, Trinitarians. Just like name, anima, right? Always means proper name, office, position. Doesn't mean authority apart from a person's actual name when that's what's involved. So you have to be careful, right? We don't want to get too much off onto doctrine necessarily, but it's important because when we're, again, bringing new people in and talking about these things, you need to understand where these discussions can go, right? We can spend all night talking about this concept that has no foundation in the Bible. Eternal generation, right? This is later stuff. They just bring it up because they don't want to deal with the text. They're not satisfied with that. What's in the text is enough for them. Right? One God the Father is not enough. If it was, that's what they'd be believing in, right? That's what they'd be promoting. One God the Father. Like word for word, original Christian creed from Paul. And that's just not going to happen with Trinitarians and most other groups, right? They don't really seem to recognize that. It's like they see it, they read it, but it's like, whatever, So for us, a lot of these things are very simple. We don't have to keep getting into these discussions. We can. Of course we can, right? But how many times do we want to have the same discussion, whether it's about the Trinity or any of these things, right? We want to try to help each other grow, right? In fact, let's take a look at a text together. 1 Corinthians chapter 11. Let me bring up the NWT, because as we know, it's probably the best English translation you can use right now. I'm about to release Proverbs. We're very close. Hang in there. And I'm working diligently on other books, so we'll see. But you can use any Bible, really, as long as you understand where the divine name should be, and you understand what the Bible teaches on about God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit. Then when you get to text, it may not be translated correctly. You'll understand, okay, that's a translation that's either by a Trinitarian or for Trinitarians, or isn't done necessarily correctly and representative of the actual text. Sometimes that takes a while, but for most of us, I think we've been through it enough to where we can deal with almost any issue, or certainly recognize it, right? And if you're reading through something and something doesn't make sense, then make a note. You look up that later, get back to your reading, right? Because we really need to grow. We really need to be able to grow and become mature so that we're reliable, so that we can help young people, right? There are people who are growing up in this world and who are either in certain groups or not, and they need answers. They're going to find them somewhere. Can't get to everybody. That's not our goal. It's not our job is not to reach every single person. Not every single person is going to be reached. We don't decide that, but our job is just to do what we can when we can, and to do it as reasonably and respectfully as possible when we're trying to reach someone, right? When we're defending against a malicious attack, like an apologetic nut or someone, right? We see in the Bible at times the apostles had to deal with very, very ferocious people, and it didn't always go well for them. So we have to be careful. We have to be mindful of some of the types of people who aren't going to want us to do well as individuals or as a group. This is the way it is, right? Not for any reason other than we don't believe what they believe. We don't believe the Trinity. We don't believe in the Watchtower. Right? We don't believe in all these other traditions or ideas that aren't explicit in the Bible or convincing enough to where we can stand behind them. And so they're not going to like us for that reason. It's just the way it is. Or people who just don't believe in God. You're a Christian witness of Jah. Okay, well, I'm an atheist, so whatever. They're not going to like you. It wouldn't matter who you are. If you're a Christian of any kind, right, someone who's not a Christian, they're not going to really care for you as much. Maybe they are. Maybe there's someone they can just set it all aside, but it's not always easy to do. So we have to be prepared for that. And one way of being prepared is by coming together, right? Having at least somebody that you can maybe look to and say, hey, how's everything going? Or someone who can hopefully pray with you, or in the best case scenario, right, partake of the emblems even briefly, like we're going to do right, every time during this show, during the CW, Christian Witnesses of Jah discussion show. We'll talk about things that come up or what was important to us, but we're going to proclaim the coming of the Lord. We're going to publicly display our commitment to him in the way that we are told in John chapter 6 is absolutely necessary for everlasting life. So it's very important. And we know that there are groups, in this case that I'm thinking of, the Watchtower, they believe a lot of the things that we do. They also have a lot of other beliefs that we don't have. And partaking of the emblems is one of them, for almost all of them. When that should be something that they do with us, right? Maybe by our coming together and doing things like this, it will make it easier for them to see that this is something they can actually do. This is okay to do. They've been taught, and as we know, if you've been a part of the Watchtower, right, we were taught it's something you kind of just avoid, right? You pass it along. You know, in our special class, the great crowd's already here, even though the tribulation hasn't arrived. So they're dealing with that. That's not easy to deal with. So we need to be prepared for that, right? If you're going to partake and do things, or we're not here to cater to them either, right? They're the ones making the mistake. They're the ones choosing not to partake of the things they're told they should partake of. They're the ones who say they're going to give their life for the Christ, but yet they're not going to partake of his body and blood. We're already going to give your life for him. That's what that represents. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, especially when you consider that the great crowd, or at least the nations who are allowed to go into the new earth, Matthew 25, don't even seem to know about that. They don't know who his brothers are. What is he talking about? Or is anybody who reads the Bible, and especially that account, well, you definitely already know what he's talking about. So, some things to think about, but we're going to do that in a few. And let's see what we have. Yeah, the divine name. Well, so Everett, that's a good point. And there is also material on the divine name in 3 dissertations. You look at the section about the name of God, and especially the endnotes. A lot of people don't realize this. There's some information there about the Samaritan pronunciation that's not in I don't think it's all in my first chapter. Right? The first chapter is loaded. Right? It's over 100 pages, and in the 3rd edition and 2nd edition, over 120. Could be its own book very easily, and that's what it'll eventually be. But I have a lot more to say about the divine name, as you know. And once I get the Proverbs translation out, that will unleash more. But quite honestly, the best thing I can do, the divine name needs to be dealt with more. But we know about Jah, right? So the whole thing about the divine name, and and even when it comes to talking to this person that you brought up, is it really something we're supposed to be arguing about? That doesn't seem to me to be a productive way to treat the divine name, right? Sometimes it can be. It can be an important discussion at times. But that's the whole point of getting Jah, right? And we don't have to deal with all that stuff. People can, look at all, like you said, look at all the information that's there and all the stuff. We have even more. But nobody can dispute Jah. And yet it just seems like people can't rally around it, right? Does it? It almost doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter how clear theology is, one God the Father. It doesn't matter how clear all the pre-Christian evidence is of Jesus as the biblical Messiah. Golden rule being above hypocrisy and the best way to live. It's like, it's just always something that people want to talk about, right? Everyone wants to always argue. And I'm not saying this is necessarily what you're bringing up, Everett. And I see this could be a different type of discussion with the person you're mentioning. But nevertheless, right, I'm trying to get to a point where everyone is like, okay, we're just Jah. Well, that's who we're going to praise according to Revelation 19. Right? So why not start now? Why not start that now? If that's what it's all headed to, then why wouldn't we just use it now? It's been used for thousands of years. It's an indisputable pronunciation. It keeps us from arguing over the divine name. And we can praise Jah, right? If we're arguing over the divine name, I won't be able to get into the problems with evolution and atheism. See? The more time I have to continually deal with these same subjects over and over and over again, there could be new information, right? There's always some new thing or way to look at it, right? Like with the whole Matthew 28:19 thing we did last night, right? This new idea that Trinitarians put out there, where really they've been believing that a long time, actually, that the singular use of name helps support their doctrine, which, as we showed, is not true. At the more time, right? This is good information, right? We resolved that issue. It's done. We have examples in the Bible that clearly show why the singular use of name is applied to multiple subjects with different names. Every time we have to do that, it takes away, right? I can't tell you how long I've been trying to get a lot of this translation work done, or how long I've been trying to get more into atheism and evolution. And I just can't. I can't do it because everybody wants to talk about the Trinity. Everybody wants to talk about the divine name. Everybody wants to argue and talk about the exact same things over and over and over again. And even if it is because of some new little thing, my goodness. Do you know how much we're ignoring when it comes to these other subjects? You know how many people's faith is getting destroyed because of science? So I'm sorry if I'm not as enthusiastic as some might be about talking about a lot of these issues again. They come up quite a bit, and I'm happy to engage people, but I don't really think a lot of people really read or even listen. Not really. I can prove it. In fact, we'll just do it real quickly. Let me show you. I'll be addressing this in my next CW JawTube comments video, but just to prove the point that people don't really listen or pay attention. Let's just go to my channel real quick. I'll put me right now. I'll put me right there. No, because then I won't be able to look at it, huh? We'll put it right there. So if we go to my my recent Michael the Archangel video, part 10, which if you listen to this video, then you will know I'm specifically addressing the argument that if Michael wouldn't rebuke Satan directly when he was arguing over Moses' body, I don't say Moses' body or refer to the Jude account, but I allude to it. And of course, I've done a whole video on it. But it's very clear that's what I'm talking about, because there is no other instance, is there? Where instead of rebuking Satan, Michael defers to God. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the account about where he does that with Moses' body, according to Jude. And in this video right here, right, on Jesus and Michael's Biblical Archangel, part 10, the one I just uploaded, I mentioned that if people are that bad, they think he's not Michael because he didn't rebuke Satan over Moses' body before he was given all authority, well then, why don't they ever point to Revelation 12, where he not only rebukes Satan, but he beats him up and throws him out of heaven? So, okay, where's your argument about him not rebuking Satan over Moses' body, Trinitarian? It just shows how little they actually understand, right? That not only was Michael at the time of the dispute over Moses' body not with the authority over Satan to be able to throw him out or to rebuke him, right? He had authority as the Prince of Israel. Satan was still the one with authority over the kingdoms of the earth. Jesus made that clear by not rebuking Satan over that very issue in Luke 4. And in fact, that's also another account where he relies and defers to the biblical text and doesn't, for example, condemn him or rebuke him. But he refers away from himself to God in response. Either way, in Revelation 12, right, he goes way beyond that. after he is given the authority, which it expressly refers to as the authority of his Christ in Revelation 12. So if the Trinitarian, as you're going to see right here, as they often do, if the Trinitarian is going to argue that, right here, if the Trinitarian is going to argue that in not rebuking Satan over Moses' body, it proves he's not Michael, well then what does beating him up and throwing him out of heaven prove? That he is Michael, right? That would be the opposite of what they're saying. They're basically saying that's not the case in the account about Moses' body. But if it was, well, then what would they be saying? They would be saying, okay, well, then he would be, right? If Michael directly rebuked Satan, then he would be no different from Jesus, whom they identify in a higher level when they make this comparison. Look right here. That's what I'm talking about, right here. In this very video, okay? In this very video, where I talk about Revelation 12 involving Michael not just rebuking Satan, but fighting him and beating him, I get this question. I get this question from Rivendell. And this was just an hour ago, right before the show. How do you explain that Jesus is called first and last and Alpha and Omega in Revelation? Well, I did 4 videos about it, Rivendell. So when you actually find the time to actually do a little research through my videos, then you'll actually see I've already addressed it. And it's very clear Jesus is speaking for God, and an angel is speaking for God and Jesus, and even starts to say, I am coming quickly. I am the Alpha and the Omega, first and last, in Revelation 22. John reacts and bows down before him, and the angel says, no, don't do that. It says that the angel was the one showing and telling him those things, including speaking as the Alpha and the Omega. Both the angel and Jesus can do that because it's the revelation from God. They are representing God. They are speaking as God, both in Revelation and everywhere else in the Bible, the angels that serve God. And yet we get this question from a person who couldn't find 4 videos specifically addressing the Alpha and the Omega first and last question, and who asks and says John 3:16 calls him monogenes, unique in his kind. Monogenes doesn't mean unique in his kind. Well, I guess in one sense it could. It means only begotten. It can mean uniquely begotten, like the way Isaac was uniquely begotten, the child of Abraham and Sarah, even though Abraham also had Ishmael with Hagar. So, only begotten, unique in his kind. Well, if he's only begotten, then he's not one in nature with the Father, Rivendell. The Father is not only begotten. Not even in the early church fathers. He's the unbegotten. Jesus is the only begotten. You're correct. That proves he is not God, the Father, equal to him, part of the Trinity. You say John 3:16 calls him monogenes, unique in his kind, while Michael is called one of the chief princes in Daniel 10:13. Everybody, have I not already done a video about Daniel 10:13? We talk about it all the time. I did a video specifically addressing this issue on the playlist on the front of this channel, which Rivendell obviously couldn't spend a couple minutes and find. It even says Daniel 10:13 or 12 right there, which would put you right there in the title. And Rivendell, what you don't understand, since you never watched the video or read the Bible, apparently, is the princes. It's talking about the princes of the nations, the sons of God who were appointed a portion of the nations according to the Dead Sea Scroll reading of Deuteronomy 32:8. And according to Daniel, there's the prince of Greece, the prince of Persia. Michael's the prince of Israel. Those are the chiefs. Those are the princes. He's one of those princes, Rivendell. He's the great prince of Israel, the prince of the army of Jehovah, Joshua 5. He's one of those princes. He hasn't been given all authority on heaven and on earth yet, Rivendell. Do you understand that? Are you dumb, Rivendell? You might want to think about that. We'll try to help you, but we can only do so much, okay? So if you can't understand context and that Michael was the great prince of Israel, given God's name in Exodus 23, and who acted and spoke as God to the people, and was one of the princes of the nations that existed after the flood, then there's nothing anyone can do for you. You don't accept the Bible. You've rejected it. And you ask these stupid questions right here. Look, he goes on. What does not implicate uniqueness? Michael argued over Moses' body, but he said to Satan, "May God rebuke you," referring to Jesus, who is clearly God. Oh, really? Where does it say Jesus is God there, Rivendell? Not only do you lie and say Michael is calling Jesus God when he rebukes Satan, but you bring up the very issue that I address in this video, and this is why I brought this comment up in this discussion, everyone. So you understand, it won't matter. It won't make a difference. We can talk to anybody you want, Everett, about the divine name, whatever. It's not going to make a difference with some people. Look at this guy or girl. Michael argued over Moses' body, but said to Satan, "May God rebuke you," referring to Jesus, who's clearly God, right? By God, they mean person of God. Doesn't say that though, right? Just lying to everybody again. But the very issue I address, right? If Michael didn't rebuke Satan, as I say in this very video that this comment is made on, if Michael didn't rebuke Satan, but instead deferred to God, why didn't Michael do that in Revelation 12? Because as Revelation 12 says, it's after he's caught away to God and to his throne, after he conquered and sat down on his Father's throne with all authority in heaven and on earth. That's why, Rivendell. And it didn't take me to point that out to you. You just can't get past your false doctrine. It's a problem. So keep this in mind, everyone. It won't make any difference, right? And then he goes on and he says, even unbelieving Thomas had to admit that. And Jesus acknowledged his statement and accounted him as justice. Yeah, actually, no, he didn't. He said, happy are your eyes because you see. Happy are those who don't see and yet who believed. So Thomas was actually not someone he spoke to of in the highest terms there. But what you're saying here is kind of nonsensical, accounted it to him as justice. He just acknowledged that he believed because of what he saw. And he directly said to him, "My Lord and my God." Who did Jesus say our Lord and our God is in verse 17? Several verses earlier, Rivendell. Not only did I do a whole video on this subject, these verses, which you obviously didn't watch. You obviously didn't even read the context of John 20:28. Jesus, and as I'm going to talk about tomorrow, right, everybody, part 24, this is what we're going to discuss. Jesus told us who our God is, Rivendell. The same God that's his God. The Father, the one God. Do you understand one God, Rivendell? Okay, well, if Jesus says, my God is your God, and my Father is your Father. So when Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God," who is his God, Rivendell? Who did Jesus just say to everybody was there an hour in his God, the Father. So when Thomas acknowledged him or said to him, my Lord and my God, he's acknowledging him as the Father, the very one they failed to recognize in John 14. So much so that Jesus says, have I been with you so long and you still don't believe? If you've seen me, you have seen the Father. From this time on, you've both seen him and know him. So then to look at him when he's been resurrected and already told everyone his God and our God are the same, the Father, and he's already told everyone, if you see me, you're looking at the Father, then what is Thomas saying, Rivendell? That he's a person of the Trinity? Or that he's the Father to us? Exactly like he said in John 14, and pretty much all throughout John and the other Gospels, but John especially because of John recording all this stuff. Can't do a single thing on my own. Don't teach what is mine. Didn't come of my own will. You're not, it's the Father is working through me. You're looking at the Father. My Father, your Father. My God, your God. My Lord, my God, right, because I'm the Father to you. Father's working through me to you. You see me, you're looking at the Father. Real simple stuff, Rivendell. We don't need the Trinity and Constantine's pagan contribution of Homoousios to figure this stuff out. And we don't need you coming here asking several questions without watching any of the videos I've already done and asking a question that I answer in the very video we're talking about. Gets a little crazy, you know. Hey, thanks, Tarantula Clan. I appreciate that. We got Ryan with us. Oh, don't worry, Ryan. We'll get more into Michael. Let's get Proverbs out. Let's get the Gospels out. I've got part 11 all ready to go. I'll have part 11 on Michael and Jesus as the biblical archangel. Probably because we're doing part 24 on the Trinity tomorrow. Then I'll do it's an upload from another show about the 7 spirits, the part I did about the 7 spirits, the 7 archangels, and we read the text that people associate with the 7 spirits in Revelation. And then I talked a little bit more about Jesus and showed how he's basically in association with those 7 spirits acting like an archangel, right? And that's how he's presented in the book of Revelation, as we've discussed separately in our show on Revelation 1:1. He's both acting as an archangel in both sense, as the chief angel and as the ruler of the angels. He's God's chief messenger, acting like a messenger right there. It's indisputable, right? It's over. Trinitarianism is later doctrine. It just creates conflict, right? It just creates a bunch of nuts. They just go nuts and create catastrophes everywhere, right? I mean, they get people so insane and fired up over this tradition and all this stuff, right? Calling everybody heretics. And so they just demonize everybody so badly that they've destroyed the kind of constructive dialogue that you would think would take place more, like Everett was saying, right? You would think this would be more commonplace, right? Let's go talk about it here, talk with this person. Well, yeah, but who is this person, right? What do they want to talk about? Are they really serious? Have they really read and watched everything? Or am I going to be telling them the things for the first time that they could have learned on their own and then ask me questions about that? So, excuse me. Yeah, and I would bring up Everett, like we said earlier, I would say, Maury forfeited. So I believe he lost clearly, right? He lost not only on the discussion on air about the knowledge of God, but the follow up, right? I did everything. I did everything he asked me to do. All the write up. I wrote a lot, and then I added it to my revised editions of JWD, right? So I did my part. He lost in the discussion, right? He was stumped several times, and then he never followed up, never responded. But he not only lost that, right? The Maury debate was really a 2-1. He forfeited. The Trinity was the topic. That the deity of Christ was what we were supposed to discuss. So that's a forfeit. Right? That's him saying, you know what, I can't win this one. I'm moving on. Otherwise, why wouldn't you have that discussion? They didn't even get on it at all. That's what we were supposed to discuss. So that's a forfeit to me. I missed the news. What news? Let me see what I miss. Oh, okay. I got it, Miroslav. Congratulations. I'm very happy for you and your wife. So, um, Miroslav is letting us know that they're expecting, and that's a beautiful thing. So I'm very happy for you. May God bless you. I'm sure that with all the knowledge and wisdom that you've attained, that you'll be a great father, a good husband, and you'll be able to raise a child in the right ways. Give them a good perspective, right? Help them to understand good reasons, how to think about things, how you don't have to know everything. You don't have to know anything. You do have to have reasons to believe, right? Do I know if I'm going to go outside and get struck by lightning? No, it's pretty remote though. Do I know if I get in a car and drive, I'm going to get hit and injured or killed? No, but it happens like every day, many times a day. So we don't know. We don't know if, like Descartes thinks, we're being controlled by an evil demon or we're in a dream state. It just seems real. Although, as I've said before, if we are being controlled by an evil demon, it won't make any difference because we're not going to act any other way. We're not going to act like what we're actually dealing with, the evidence we see. The possibility of a demon controlling us isn't going to change our actions. It's just a remote possibility that we can't disprove. But everything else is consistent with what we do believe is true. So we don't have to disprove it, right? It's so minuscule in terms of the evidence is available to support that possibility, that the reality of what surrounds us and the idea that we're not being controlled in that way is overwhelmingly more supported by evidence. And so then the same with the dream state, right? I've experienced dreams, I've gone to sleep, and I know the difference between even real dreams and those that aren't. Then sustained awareness, like right now, right? None of what's happening right now has any of the deep or even broad earmarks of what I remember from any of my dreams, as real as they are at times. So you don't need to know anything. I know I kind of went off there, right? But it's very important. You're going to be a father, so um, we need to be able to think right. We don't need to prove what we can't prove. We only need to be able to prove that this is the right thing to do. This is the right choice to make. This is the right belief, right? Everything else doesn't come to rise to the level of evidence this has. And so even when it comes to things we don't know and where our life is involved, like I said, with driving, we'll take that chance because the likelihood is low. And we know there are rules of the road, and while people don't always follow them, the fact is we believe in ourselves. We think we can follow them, and so we also know there could be something that happens. So we don't need to know 100%. In fact, we rarely ever do. We usually just have evidence, a lot of evidence, right? And we don't make decisions for no reasons. It's not like it's a couple pieces of evidence is all we need. No, we need to have substantial evidence depending on the belief, but I think we have enough for the beliefs that matter. And that's why with us, our beliefs are so simple, right? God the Father, Jesus is the Messiah, golden rule. There's a lot of other stuff. We can talk about it. But fundamentally, right, if we can just come together around belief in God the Father, one God, Jah, and the divine name that's the least indisputable, Jah, right? We may talk to people like Everett's associate or others, but when we're coming together and what we promote, we don't need to argue about the divine name. We don't need to argue about one God the Father. We don't need to argue about Jesus the Messiah. We don't need to argue about the golden rule. We can talk about other stuff that comes up, but again, all right, how much are you going to be able to accomplish and help people if you're arguing about anything? Sometimes we have to, I know, but not as much as I think we often do. I think we can do more by just promoting belief, right? By promoting what we can show is true and the reasons why and what we should do, helping other people, right? Not everybody is intellectually geared toward these deeper discussions, and so we also have to be able to dial things back and take our time and just sometimes sit with people and laugh. Sit with people and just smile and let them know things are okay and that we're confident, right? That we have faith, and do some of the more simple things in life. And if we can do that, then I think we'll accomplish a lot more. And then when it comes back to these other specialized discussions or repeat, right, topics, I do think talking about things more in public is important. I'm just not sure I trust a lot of people outside our group right now. Because I'm willing to find out, but it's hard to find trustworthy people right now. Even among maybe us, right? We have to be careful so we know each other. What are we trying to accomplish, right? For me, it's real simple. 3 things. That's it. And I think I can make a lot of progress if I focus on that. If I focus on God and I keep the whole identity and name things simple, right? One God the Father, indisputable. No, we don't need no Trinity, none of that stuff. It's real clear, word for word. Jah, divine name, simple stuff, right? No one can really touch that. It's all this stuff, right? See, I can make progress with that. And then I can get into atheism and evolution, right? I can do a lot of really good work there and damage to their terrible views. But I've only been able to do a couple things so far because I'm constantly having to address these other things, right? Because I know these are important things to a lot of people. And I can do it. I have the info. I sometimes sit here and find myself out thinking, this is where my time is best spent, For some parts that are still coming, I think so. I think there's still just important areas of issues that we've talked about a lot, but that still can be explored. I think the Matthew 28:19 thing was important. I don't think it was necessary. I don't think it ever should have been an issue. But it's become an issue, so it had to be dealt with, right? We had to take the time and go through and show people who, in my opinion, should already know, right? They claim like they've got all the and they do, but then why isn't it showing them their results, right? Why aren't they showing us this balanced presentation of, for example, in this case, name, and why it would be in the singular in this case, right? Present on the information and then make your case if you still want to believe in the Trinity. They don't, right? You never hear about all these other uses of the singular in the way that would be similar. So what it bothers me that may have damaged people at all. That may have made people's faith weak ever. And Trinitarians, I think, should be there to blame for that. They're to blame for promoting an argument that is clearly wrong if they just took the time to check it, and instead they're burdening other people with their reckless presentation of doctrine, absent supporting facts. And then now we got to go and find it because they're making this accusation, right? Oh, and now people are asking this question. No one has any, oh, God, got to look it up now, right? It's like another thing. Aren't we done? Are we done? I thought we were done with the Trinity. I know we're done. I mean, I have more to do myself, so I'm not done. But believe me when I say it's done, right? It's like over for me. I'm only doing this because it's a series and I have more that I can add to it. And I already talked about getting to the creeds, right? So I'm trying to work our way there. And then I have a separate series on early Christian views of Jesus to bring us from the New Testament, first century, through to the period of greater controversy. So we're going through some of the early fathers and just seeing where they fall in line with the New Testament, or are they making changes in ways that show signs of early Trinitarian thinking. So I think it's all coming together in a way that will ultimately be a good documentation of these issues. But I guess I'll be happy when it's all done. You know, I'll be happy when when I get past the creeds and I've talked about everything in the Bible. And I don't know. I mean, there's so much though, right? I could go on to 50 or 100. Who knows? Either way, as long as it's helping people, I guess. But I just think there's so much more. I know there is. I know there's more, and that's why I want to do this as regularly as possible. In fact, let's go ahead and move towards our sharing of the bread and wine. Whoever's going to participate with me, we're going to get to that. Let me see though if we have any more questions. We got some discussions here, but nothing that we want to break too much off on. Japheth, I'm not an Arian. I've never read Arius' stuff other than what some of his enemies have had to say, and I was convinced that there was one God the Father before I read any of that stuff. Straight from Paul. So it is incorrect of you to call me an Arian. I have nothing to do with Arius. People can say Arius believes things that Paul taught, but I don't. That's the only correct thing you can say. This is a mistake for anyone to claim to be an Arian today, unless that's where you got your belief, right? That's what an Arian would be. Anything else is a misapplication of that term, especially for someone who never read Arius when they came to these beliefs. Totally incorrect. So let's get that straight, all right? You can call yourself whatever you want, but my beliefs are rooted in the first century Christian documents. They have nothing to do with Arius. I don't even know that we have Arius's writings, right? We only have what his enemies are telling us about him. And we can do some things, but I've never gathered Arius's views and said, yeah, that's what I believe. Not even close. That's true, Everett. Yahweh's really not possible. It doesn't match with any of the phonetic evidence that we have from several centuries BCE and several centuries after the first century. So just a massive amount of time. Other writings that talk about the Tetragrammaton, like Jerome, right, specifically saying it's pronounced Yah-O. So there's no doubt, right? They look at the theophoric elements in biblical names, right? None of them are Yahweh or Way. Right there, it's over, right? And that's how you also know what the actual pronunciation of God's name is, by the way it's pronounced in association with those other terms, other names, I should say, as a theophoric suffix or prefix, but not the full 4-letter form. It's usually it's the 2-letter or 3-letter form most of the time. And so it's just tradition, right? They got on DR Driver, I believe it was, wrote an article a long time ago, very detailed, but full of errors, and didn't really incorporate any of the phonetic evidence that we have, or some of it was available in his day, but not like in texts like 4Q Leviticus B, where you have Yah-O, in the biblical text, dated several centuries before the Christian era. So there's all kinds of information, but they don't really seem to care, huh? It's like what we were talking about earlier with regard to arguments about Michael and these texts, right? You could do a whole video and I'll still get a comment on the video asking a question. Now, this is after what I was talking about yesterday. You know, yesterday's video, I kind of was talking about how I got a question and I sent some videos to someone who asked a question, and then they asked me a question before they could watch the videos that's answered in those videos. Then I get this from Rivendell, right? Just before the show, like an hour, asking me, posting a question on the video about Revelation 12 that's addressing the issue about Michael not rebuking Satan over Moses' body. I get a question about it. What about this and him not rebuking Satan over Moses' body? Oh, I don't know. Did you watch the video? Is that what happened? You didn't watch it and you just posted your cut and paste apologetic, insanity, misunderstanding of biblical text? Is that what it's all about? It's just a cut and paste formula, no actual intake. Because I can't it was a 2-minute video, right? It was 2 minutes long. A 2-minute video, and I get a question asking me what I answer in the video. And what I've done other videos about in that very series. And why Michael doesn't rebuke Satan over Moses' body, right? He doesn't have all authority in heaven and earth. He hasn't been caught away to God his throne yet. But when that happens, right? Oh, now we have the very thing Trinitarians say should be happening over Moses' body. So what now, Trinitarians? Well, now you don't believe it, right? Well, so then why are you asking us the question about the issue involving Moses' body? Well, you don't care. We can point you to a text where he not only rebukes Satan, but he fights him and throws him out. And you're asking us why he doesn't rebuke him? Oh, I don't know. Could it be he doesn't have the authority there? That Satan is still one with authority over all the kings of the earth and Michael's the prince of Israel only? And then he becomes the one who receives all authority in heaven and on earth after he's caught away to God into his throne? And then what happens, right? The very thing that you imply by your question would show he's Michael. And in the very video where I present that information so that you can see that's what's happening, you ask me the question answered in the video. You ask me the question that's defeated by the video, right? Because it shows your question doesn't understand timing, doesn't understand where the very thing you're pointing out doesn't occur, does occur. And you don't even deal with it, right? It's like, we have to be careful because it's so easy, right? We want to be right. We want to show others we're right. And no matter how wrong they are and how dumb they may look at times. And it's not us being mean, right? At least not me. I don't like calling people or things dumb, but I'll tell you what. If you post a question on a video 2 minutes long that's answered in that video, as if I don't answer the question in the video, and so you have to ask it. Yes, there are times when things are dumb. That's dumb. That is not smart. It's not good. It's terrible. It shows you're not a serious person, but you're talking about serious issues. Well, guess what? Some of us are actually serious about serious issues. And we don't like it when people come here and waste our time and ask questions that we've answered. When there's multiple videos that answer every single point you make, including the very video to which you posted one of your questions. And so it's important that we use our time wisely, right? And I may have to do it more than some of you because I have this channel, but I'm not here to do that, right? I'm not here to waste my time with people who won't even watch a 2-minute video and see that Michael, when he has the authority, does exactly what you're saying he should do when he doesn't have the authority, which shows that you don't know what you're talking about. And we do. Okay? So stop with the traditions, right? Put down the false doctrine. Okay? Let it go for once. Let go of your false doctrine. And let us just be Christians, okay? Let us believe what the Bible teaches. And you go believe what Constantine wants you to believe. You go believe in Trinitarianism if that's what you want. That's fine. If that's what you want to do, we're not here to stop you. It doesn't bother us. I know a lot of people who are Trinitarian. They're nice people. And I know a lot of them who are nuts. So, we don't want to be like that, right? We don't want to be like that. Let's read the text, and then we're going to do our bread and wine, right? This is the text I was going to read earlier, and we kind of started talking, right? But it's the one text I wanted to share. But we've talked about some good things, and so we'll read this, we'll partake, and we'll kind of end it right there. Part 24, Bible and the Trinity and Conflict tomorrow. We'll probably keep around this same time, right? Probably between 8 and 9, because it seems like a good time for everybody. At least that's the feeling I'm getting. All right, now we've talked about a few things, right? I try to make these discussions for us. This is our time. This is the time for the Christian Witnesses of Jah to come together and talk about whatever we want. If we want to talk about a little doctrine, no problem. You want to ask me a question and see if maybe we want to have an interview with someone, no problem. Anything you want to talk about. Unless there are limits, right? We remember when Maltops asked a question that is unacceptable, right? Does a copy have the same age as the original? If you go to that extent, okay, or if you're going to make a declaration like Craig Little, right? These may be nice people on their own, but when it comes to what they did here and the things they said to mislead people, all for false doctrine, no. We're not here in this show for that, right? We get the Bible and the Trinity conflict. You Trinitarians can go a little bit more nuts there. Although, I think at this point, right, it's game over. It's game over, right? I mean, there really is nothing left. We've exposed everything you guys have done, and you're just on infinite repeat, right? You guys are on infinite repeat. So, yes, let's get to the partaking, Betsy. In fact, let me read the text and we'll do that, right? 1 Corinthians 11, become imitators of me. Let me bring it up. And then we'll partake. We'll read this text together. Try to keep this text with you. And remember it along with the points we made. 1 Corinthians 11:1, become imitators of me, even as I am of Christ. Now I command you, because in all things you have me in mind, and you are holding fast the traditions, just as I handed them on to you. One God the Father. Those are our traditions, Trinitarians. That's okay. Paul's not talking about traditions that come about later. He's not talking about traditions that come about like several hundreds of years later at the hands of a pagan emperor. He's talking about their traditions. Right? Remember what he said in Galatians 1, everybody? If anybody comes to you and brings another teaching or another good news, an angel out of heaven says it. No. The answer is no. One God the Father. Okay? Anything else? No. Verse 3, but I want you to know that the head of every man is the Christ. In turn, the head of the woman is the man. In turn, the head of the Christ is God. All right. That's very important, right? That we understand this arrangement. And none of this has anything to do with being abusive to anyone, asking someone to do something that would be against the will of God or the Christ. But we do need to have some kind of structure in our family and in our meetings and arrangement. Right? We have to submit to the Christ. The Christ has to submit to God. And women have to submit to men. Submit, all that means is that you follow our lead unless we do something stupid. Okay? I think that's okay. We're actually built for that. And it doesn't mean you can't lead or provide good direction. But we can too. And we're put in that position, Christian women, And if we fail, and you can see clearly and show that we're failing, then do what you think is correct. Otherwise, though, this is the arrangement. It's a good thing. It's how we're made. We complement each other. We're very similar in almost every way, but we have slight differences in our emotional and physical makeup that allow us to complement each other, especially if we're following the lead of the Christ. We're not going to be creating drama and problems within a marriage, whether you're a man or a woman. And that's all we're going to talk about. We don't deal with other genders because there are no other genders. Male and female are the way we have been made. You can make yourself or identify however you want, but we have a biological makeup. And the way that the Bible presents our working together is for men to take the responsible lead. And as long as we're doing that, women should help us. You are designed to be our helper. That doesn't mean you run around and just pick up after us and everything. But quite honestly, we should be picking up after each other, shouldn't we? What would the Christ be doing? We are actually supposed to be making each other's lives better. It's not just women who do that. Men are supposed to do things, and I believe do things, especially if you're following the biblical text, that show you're clearly picking up after women and others. We're all doing that. Don't fall into the trap of believing what this perverted world is trying to make you think about men and women and us serving each other in ways that are exactly like God and the Christ. Okay? These are our beliefs. There's no abuse or problems there. It's exactly what it should be. And now we're imperfect in ways where we have to deal with each other's mistakes. God and Jesus don't necessarily have to deal with that, right? But that's our own choice. So we have to know that. We have to know that while we have a defined role as men and women, and while we're pretty much the same in almost every way, we are different, and we should be helping each other. The goal is to get through this life, right? To work together, to help each other as either man and wife, as brother and sister, brother and brother, sister and sister, family in Christ. Making life easier. Yes, answering questions. Yes, sometimes debating, but those are like, after we've taken care of the people who are most in need among us and the people that outside of us we can also help that are clearly in need, not faking it or lying. If we can keep all those things in mind and do our best to try to become better men, better women, help each other, know that we're imperfect, and follow the Christ the way he follows God, the Father, we're going to have an excellent time while we're here. We're going to get a lot done. And when the Master comes to us, whether we're alive or when we're resurrected, and he says, "What did you do? What did you do with the talent I gave you? What did you do with those talents? Let me see. Let me see what you did right there." We're gonna be able to show him that we made him some money. Figuratively, right? We know it's not about money. It's what it illustrates. We did not waste his gifts. We actually made something out of them. We actually made things better. We actually helped people. And because of the things you gave us, Master, we made more people believe in you. We made more people call on the name of your Father, our Father, your God, and our God. Through you, we did that. We taught them the truth. We made it very clear what the Bible teaches. about you and your Father and the Holy Spirit. Everybody was around telling us these things that are not taught in the text, and we told them, no, that's next. So we're going to stay with the text. And we made all this for you by doing that. So, if you have come to participate in our Christian ritual of bread and wine, we will go ahead and begin. And we will thank God, of course, for everything He's done for us by sending His Son to give His life so that we can live, by showing us the way, the truth, and life, and by helping us to worship the Father in spirit and truth, right? We've talked about so often not only His sacrifice, but the body that the Father prepared, right? The seed that He talked about back when He was dealing with Adam and Eve and Satan. And He knew what would have to happen in order to bring things back, to recreate them in a better way, and to put everyone to the test, right? Father knows how to do things right, but He made that body. He and His Son chose the Hebrews, and through the Davidic line, gave us His Son's body so that we could have life. And there's crazy rabbits. Huh. I don't see Dada. So, I'm very happy to have taken this time to spend with you all. This is our second live stream in a row. We did our Matthew 28:19 video yesterday. And then we're going to do part 24, Bible and Trinity and Conflict, tomorrow. I've got a bunch of uploads and things that I hopefully will get to. I'm really trying to bring you the edition of Proverbs I've worked a lot on. Once I get that out, I think I'd like to move to the Gospels, the great messages. I've done a lot there already. If I can get that done, now we're talking, right? Well, we're already talking, but we'll be talking a lot more. So I look forward to seeing you all again soon. I hope you have a wonderful day, evening, or afternoon. And may Jah bless you. In Jesus' name.